Guys, this is an absolutely fantastic episode. We have in front of your eyes, the legend continues in the house. The man I've been waiting to get on probably since 1547. But I mean, like, I'm like a time traveler. I went back to 1547. He looks like one of those, Spanish galleon type guys with that smig. And I got him. I dragged him off the galleon and brought him here. It's Trev Downey, the legend. How are you?
I'm great, Dave. 1547, when you and me were just about 7 years old, eh? As I do the good old days. I do
Oh
remember
my
them.
God. I do like time traveling every now and again. I really do. But do you know what we're going to do? We're going to time travel probably back to the 80s and 90s because we're going to talk about the Super Reds. We're going to talk about LFC, the team we both love, the team that we both dream of and will dream of and love forever, of course. But as a kid growing up, probably similar to me, it was Liverpool all the way. I had a big family of boys and it was just Liverpool. That's all we did was kick the ball around the road. Similar for you growing up, LFC?
Almost identical, man. And the difference being, I think you're a Dublin Jackeen, born and bred, with all the people around you that means.
Yeah.
We had just, me and my bro, we were reinventing every game we'd see. And back then, I mean, you're probably a younger man than me, but you're talking about very minimal football on the telly. There was very little football on the telly, so it was you were really drip fed stuff. So, these goals that from the 80s era Liverpool, they just stick in your head, man. And so we'd be trying to recreate them, every little nuance of the goal, trying to recreate it. That's my childhood memory. And getting my first ever knockoff kit, because of course we were dirt poor. There was no proper stuff coming from the club shop. So I remember that knockoff kit that I got. I must have been about 12. It was the one that had the little three stripes.
Oh.
I guess 3 stripes up here. A magical kit. I associate with Kenny. So for me, it was perfect. Yeah. So yeah, it goes right the way back, man. I suppose earliest days, I think maybe 7, 8, I was starting to become aware of football and give a crap about it and identify with Liverpool. And my uncle tried to get me to, you love this, my uncle tried to get me to support QPR. And he got me a scarf and he got me some clobber and stuff like that. And I was like, no, man, you're all right. So, no, for me, it was always going to be the Reds.
Shepherd's Bush.
Shepherd's Bush, yeah.
They had a lovely team. I think David Seaman was in goal for them in the 80s and they had a few good players, of course. But look, it was Liverpool for me and for you, Crown Paint, mid-80s. I'm a lot older than I look. I'm actually 50. I was 50 in April. So,
snap. A few weeks, I'll be the same.
Well, there you go. We're the same bottle of wine, basically.
Exactly.
But look, I mean, we were blessed. I mean, the 80s was a dream as a kid. I mean, it was a different world than we're living in today, of course. I'm not saying it's any better now than it was then. For us, it has memories, it's dreams, it's everything that makes us who we are. And it's just as simple as that. And 80s, I mean, you do talk to Jan, who was part of that famous Liverpool 80s team. There's Aldo, there's Ronnie Whelan, grown up, Ray Houghton. I mean, that team, John Barnes, for me, was probably one of my most favourite players of all time for Liverpool. I don't know if it's similar for you, but JB, wow.
Yeah, one of the most enjoyable footballers to watch. And here's the thing, man. I've been so blessed. I know you have, with your show as well, gotten a chance to talk to loads of people.
Yeah.
And you're right. It is a mental sort of situation to be able to pick up my phone and have Jan's number in there and be bantering over and back and slagging each other off about stuff. And it's mad. And to do that weekly show has been brilliant. But the thing that kicked that weekly show off was he was the first interview in a series of interviews that I did. And here's where, man, like this is, you've probably talked to a lot of these boys too. You mentioned all those lads you mentioned. I got to do 2-hour interviews with them all. Beardsley, Barnes, Ulrich, Houghton, Whelan, all of them. It was fantastic. Wow. Yeah, it was great. Even like the likes of Johnny Walk. I did one with Steve McMahon. I did one with Grobbelaar. Just fantastic, big, in-depth chats. And I was worried because, again, we didn't know a lot back then. You had Shoot magazine, that told you sod all, if we're being honest. Little details, right? Not half the scandal you get now. So I was worried I'd run out of stories. Jesus Christ, those lads have stories for days. And oh my, like I've been in absolute tears listening to them, usually slagging each other off. And guess who's the butt of the joke most of the time? Stevie Nicol. nearly
Yeah,
every
and I'll
time.
tell you what, do you ever see him on ESPN? He does a show. He's either grumpy or he's putting it on. I don't know. I think he's half the time he's putting it on, isn't he?
Yeah,
The
Dave,
grumpy part.
he didn't get his nickname of Plank for nothing. I mean,
Jesus.
he just doesn't have a whole lot going on up there. I don't know
No,
how he actually made it as a coach, you
no.
know, at
Yeah, in
all.
the
But
States. Yeah.
yeah. But no, that was special. That was real. That was an honor, I have to say, to be able to talk to all those lads, and it really gave me a feel for that era that we were talking about, that we just experienced as kids, seeing one match every fortnight or something. You know what I mean?
It was a different world. It was a different world, I suppose. I mean, even I'd say one of my friends from Liverpool Connection podcast, Daz, did a chat the other day with Ray Houghton, and I was listening to it, and they were talking about, like, you know, didn't even that Liverpool team, that famous '80s team, didn't train that much actually. He was saying they didn't train. He'd come from, I think it was Oxford United with Aldrich at the time, and they were training their arses off. I mean, these boys would go for a beer after the game and all,
Oh
smoking.
yeah,
Bro,
oh
it was
yeah.
a different level. It was a different level compared to even 10 years ago. You know.
But the one thing that's consistent though in all those stories is the training was of a different type. It was all ball retention, small sized matches against each other, constant games, just games, always playing. And I love that. And you know what? In many ways, that's the secret to the whole what was the Liverpool way. It was just they just kept playing ball. It was all about,
pass
you
and
know,
move,
one touch, two
pass
touch,
and
pass
move.
and move.
That's the
There you
famous, isn't
go.
it? The Liverpool groove.
The Liverpool groove, yeah. You'll remember the old tune, the Anfield rap back in the day with Johnny Barnes doing his solo and all that great stuff.
I mean,
Great
look,
stuff.
as I say, I mean, I love going back over because I'm very nostalgic. I love 80s music, cartoons, movies. That's what I do. That's what I love.
Yeah.
And early 90s, but mainly 80s. And for me, obviously King Kenny, we all know about King Kenny. He would be ultimate. You haven't interviewed King Kenny yet? No, would that be one of your dreams, maybe?
Yeah, there's a story there. There's a story there because the King actually has a bit of a connection with Anfield Index, which is the channel I work for.
Yeah.
And I've had an opportunity several times to do one-to-one interviews with Kenny. I'm going to tell you a secret here now. It's not a secret anymore.
This is going out now. This is going out.
Yeah, once it goes out in your channel, it won't be a secret anymore. I knocked it back. I didn't want to do it. Do you know why? Because I don't have any heroes in the world left alive except Kenny Dalglish.
Would you like to interview a hero? No.
No, man, I don't want it to. I don't want it to go wrong. And it's not nerves or something. It's just I just don't want it to go. I have this thing about what if it goes pear shaped.
I know. There's a famous saying, isn't there? You meet this celebrity or icon, and it changes your view. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, they say don't meet your heroes, and
right.
Now, perfectly honest, Kenny's a gent, and I know that as a fact. And he was actually talking to Eddie, who's one of the owners of the channel, saying like, "What's the story? When's this interview going to happen with Trev?" And I'm like, I can't do it because a couple of people have met him, and they're like me. They're same age as me and you. Two lads who I know. One lad I know pretty well, be a good mate, and both of them met Grumpy Kenny, and I just don't want.
And you don't know what to say or react.
Yeah,
I know.
Man,
I also know another guy, Gav. I don't know whether you know him, Gav. He's good friends. I think he was neighbours with Paul Dalglish. He's good friends with Paul, his son, and he did a few.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Kenny on,
Gav on Twitter, yeah.
And like,
he's a musician, Gav.
Yeah. He's a musician, yeah. And he'd have him on a lot and stuff like that. And you know, I suppose it's like anybody in life. You just got to get an interview can go wrong, or you just go along with it. Do you know what I do? I actually look back on the likes of Dick Cavett and Johnny Carson and even Gay Byrne.
I love that, man.
Even Gay Byrne for me. I don't know if you have an issue with Gay Byrne, but I thought Gay Byrne was a master. I don't know. I just unbelievable. Interviewing tactics though. Interviewing
tactics, but I go back, I watch all those YouTube Dick Cavett wormholes. I'm looking at him talking to Brando or him talking. It's just an unbelievable stuff.
Different level, isn't it?
In fact, that's what I'm doing now this evening. That's a YouTube wormhole for me now tonight.
That's my wormhole. That's where I'm always at. That and Inception. That Inception and Interstellar music going on in the background.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, have you seen the compilation of Richard Harris and Peter O'Toole chatting about all their drinking stories?
Seen it all.
Man, That
And
is
there's another
magic.
one. There's another one with that other lunatic, the English fella, Oliver Reed. Oh my
Oliver
God.
Reed, yeah. Yeah, it's class.
Like, imagine having the three of them around the table. You ask for three people to have a drink with. Don't pick those
Oh,
three.
every
Oh
time.
my
Every
God.
time. Yeah.
Different level, just different level.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we're similar age, so we're gonna have similar sort of heroes and stuff. But I mean, like the present team. I mean, Jurgen Klopp came in October 2015, of course, and basically turned this team around, turned the club around, turned the city around, basically. Because for me, and I've said it from day one, I've done a lot of podcasts. He is the closest thing I think Liverpool have had to say Shankly DNA. You could say Kenny as well. But I mean, in the modern era, for me, just the way he talks to people, the way he hugs people, the way he's almost like a politician, but he's actually likable. Politicians aren't likable. Do you know what I'm saying to you? He has
Yeah.
that persona, that charisma for me. I'd interview him. I wouldn't even phrase. I swear, I could interview the Pope. To be fair, I'm that type of person. But you know what I mean. I just his laugh. I just every single. He's the type of person who would walk into a room and you'd know he was in the room, even if you didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
wow.
presence. Yeah, it's
Presence.
presence.
Yeah, he's got a presence.
You
Yeah.
know, I agree with you there. I wouldn't have any intimidation level about
No.
interviewees either. And I'd love a chance to talk to Jurgen. And this is going to be a bit controversial because I think I might want to call him on some of his bullshit because he's a terrible man for bullshitting people in interviews. He's a
Jurgen,
terrible
come
man.
here.
He's a terrible man in the press conference for laying out a lot of owl nonsense, just owl nonsense. Now, at the same time, obviously, I wrote my first article today in 6 years. I used to write all the
I
time.
seen
I used to
something
write,
on Twitter
yeah,
today. Yeah.
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 I used to write 4 columns a week for a website called the Liverpool Offside. It was great days. I loved it. I loved doing it. I'm so proud of all those things that I wrote back in the day. I really am. And I included in today's piece exactly the same sentiment that you had there, which was, for me, his influence on the club has been Shankly-esque. It's a cultural shift, man. And it's about his personality. Of course it is. But there's a lot more to it than that. The whole culture of the club changed in a way for the better. And he's a force of nature. I really want to see things getting back on track so that there are more trophies in the Klopp era. Because again, I might sound like a moaning out git, but for me, we've left a couple of big ones on the table. And
Well, at least
it's
the
not,
league and the Champions League, when you think about it, for the team we've had, the points
yeah,
totals, the win totals,
at
the
least,
seasons we're only
yeah,
losing one game a season, I think, for 2 seasons, or 1 or 2 games a season, and you're not winning the league that season. I
yeah,
mean, I know it's unprecedented. And we look at City, we can talk about City and their 115 charges, and City with the way the world's gone, Newcastle and Live Golf, and just the way the world seems to be going. Even United apparently probably going to get bought over similarly, something similar. I mean, it's a crazy world. I just think we probably got City at the wrong time. I mean, even this season, what was it, 86 points won it? I mean, if City would have been this City
yeah,
2-3 seasons when we were there. But the other thing, and I had nearly an argument with an Arsenal fan today, and I did say to him, listen, Liverpool and City have actually pushed each other. We were catalyst for City being so good, and they were catalyst for us for being so good. We couldn't take the foot off the pedal. We had to get 90 plus points. We couldn't take it easy midweek because we'd City, and they couldn't take it easy because they'd Liverpool up their arse. So I think both of us gave each other something, and we were out there for last 3-4 seasons, and I think that's part of the reason why A, we were so good, and B, why City are so good.
No, I agree with you completely. And that's why I don't really like this relying on the City cheating thing to explain away our lack of trophies. I think we're pretty much on the same page there. For me, it's the things that we just didn't do perfectly. And I don't care how harsh that sounds. Saw that. There were a couple of games in at least each of those seasons where you go, Christ, if we'd won there, or if we hadn't been sloppy in that moment, then the thing is ours. So it for all the advantages that they have, whether legal or illegal, and that's all up in the air. And I say, like myself, you probably doubt if they're ever going to be anything really hard level against them. It doesn't matter now, man. It's over. And we had it in our hands. And I just want us to get back to that level under Jurgen, where we're right there toe to toe with them again. And maybe a different set of players, a different, younger impetus to the team, which we're being linked with all these dynamic young midfielders. We get some of those boys in. Who knows what could happen?
Well, I mean, like, look, as you say, you can't keep looking back. Don't look back in anger, as Manchester City fans might say, being Oasis.
Yeah.
But I mean, but for me, yeah, look forward. But I mean, look, McAllister's in. A lot of talk about Thuram. There's more links and rumours than a good Fleetwood Mac album. So I just don't, rumours, links, they're everywhere. They're anywhere. So I just don't really take it. Bits of pinch of salt and stuff like that. We need at least another maybe 2 midfielders. We maybe need a right back cover. Calvin Ramsey's gone on loan. Young Connor Bradley's there. Is he going to be ready to rock and roll? I don't know. Pavard, a lot of talk about him. He plays centre half and right back, so he'd actually cover 2 areas in one. He'd be like a transformer, and we know Klopp likes transformers from the 80s. So you know what I mean. You have that type of stuff. So I mean, look, I think we'll be okay. And the biggest signing and the biggest man we need on that pitch, not on the pitch but on the sideline, for me, is Jurgen Klopp. He needs to be with these 3 years left. I'm hoping he stays forever, obviously. But for me, he's the man. He is the man. He's the main man at the club. Okay, Mo Salah, now, Van Dijk, Alisson. But for me, it's Klopp. Klopp is the man. He's the man who's going to bring players in. He's the man who's going to make the team better. So we just got to get behind him. Get behind him, Trev.
I'd agree with you, and 99%. But there's a percentage of me.
Give me the percent.
I'll give you the percent. So this time last year, he's on a well-known podcast saying, what are these midfielders you're talking about that we need? Like, what midfielders do we need? And he starts listing off all the guys we have. And there's laughing going on, and it's all great. And everyone's saying, it's just total acceptance of what he's saying. That's patently cobblers, man, right? It was then. Everybody knew it. Anyone who knows anything about the club. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't admire Jurgen any less. I just mean it's a worry for me that we're not having our eye specifically on the ball. But of course, he could be just throwing out El Guff. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes?
Exactly.
But the problem is it's changed, hasn't it? That whole dynamic has changed, man. And because it's changed, it's hard to have the confidence in it that we used to have. We used to just know that we were going to get great lads who would turn into world beaters under Klopp. There was a few years there where that was just the way it was working, because everything was clicking perfectly behind the scenes. It's all changed there now. So we can't have that confidence. And you see the likes of Ibu Konate coming out, running his mouth, as some people said. I think he's got
Ram baby in Kone, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's got every right to say.
There must be something going on there. There has to be bits going on. They're all French and they're all in the same camp and they're all talking. And we've been waiting for Thuram now for about 6 months. Kone as well. Whether we get the 2 of them, I want one of them. I want Thuram. I think he's a unit, 6'4", big fella, only 22. Yeah. But as you say, I mean, you can only get so many bags of coal and put your hand in and drag diamonds out. We've been basically putting our hands into a bag of coal and pulling out a diamond like 7 or 8 times out of 10. And I mean, it is unusual to do that.
Yeah, the hit rate was ridiculous.
Huge hit rate. That won't happen forever, Trev. I know Michael Edwards isn't there. Julian Ward isn't even there. Big Jorge, can't even pronounce his surname, is there now. And Klopp's more hands-on, but it still doesn't matter. Still a bag of coal in the corner. Put your hand in. It's like a lucky dip with FSG. And it shouldn't be a lucky dip, is what we're really talking about, isn't it? Shouldn't be a lucky dip.
No, it shouldn't be, because you would have thought, be able to go and spend the big money on the lad who isn't a risk. And that's a frustration for people. I think people have a right to be frustrated with perhaps a lack of ambition from that regard from the owners. Even things like some of the facilities that were built, it was using club money rather than using owners' investment. And those kind of things stick in the craw a little bit when results aren't going right. When they're going right, nobody gives a crap. Everyone's great. You know how it goes. Yeah. So I would love us to get over this hump that we're on. It's a bit of a spiral. Everyone's looking at each other. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're to blame. You're to blame. I just want us to get a load of new bodies in the door, hit restart and go, That's what I'm genuinely looking forward to next season for that reason.
Yeah, no, big time. I mean, what else can you do other than refresh and go again? Or that's basically all you can do. Trust in Klopp, trust the process. There's going to be, obviously, hopefully at least another 3, maybe 4. Who knows how many in the door. We have McAllister. I'm very excited about him. He looks a proper player, really good player. I mean, anybody who's wearing the number 10 jersey, of course, and Argentinian international, he was one of the standouts, probably 2, 3 standouts for Argentina. Obviously, Messi was probably number 1, but he was thereabouts. you know, in the World Cup. He was one of the reasons why they bloody won it. He was that good.
That was it.
He was that
that
good,
was it.
you know?
Yeah. Him and Enzo Fernandez and Messi.
And
They
Messi,
were,
of course, yeah.
that was the unit, like, and it's really exciting to think what he's going to do. I think he'll need to have that dynamism around him, though. If we're going into the season and it's still the sort of declining Fab, the very clearly declining Hendo, that's not good enough. We're going to have to get those guys in, I think, or else I'd be a little bit more pessimistic about the possibilities for the season, you know.
Yeah. No, look, it's early. Hopefully we can get even a Thuram or a Kone or both in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But look, that's next season. Let's hope we can have a little rest this season and chat. I want to talk to you about, you've another podcast you do. It's called, it's a Great Stories. Is that what it's called? The Great Stories?
It is called The Great Stories. Yeah.
So how did that come about? What's that all about?
So there are a few things that I'm very passionate about, man. One of them is football. The other things that I'm very passionate about are music, books, and films. Wow. And I read a lot. I always have read a lot. And so literature is kind of my thing. And it's one of those topics you can't normally bring up in conversation because people think it's elitist or,
I'm okay.
You know, it's not, you know, yeah, like it's not for me or whatever like that. So the idea behind the show was to make the best authors accessible to everybody. And the way I chose to do that was to focus on short stories. So little half-hour chunks that everybody can find and digest and enjoy. And then me having a little natter about it afterwards to try and maybe hit a few of the points they might have missed or tie together a few things or give a bit of context. And I've got to tell you, Dave, the response to it has been ridiculous. I mean,
is it that big? I heard it was big. Now I just didn't know. You know what I mean? It is big.
Look, it's not half as big as I'd like it to be, but there are a lot of people supporting it. There are a lot of ears going on it around the world. And I just clicked yesterday on the reviews page in a place called Chartable. And mate, like I'm trying to be a modest lad, so I couldn't even get through 2 pages. It was great. It was just, it's lovely to see it having that impact. Yeah. So I'm very ambitious for it. The plan is to genuinely make it something that is almost what I, yeah, exactly. Make it something that it's what I do, you know, that kind of way.
Where can you get it? Is it on Spotify? Where do you get it? Where? Because if someone's watching this show wants to, what's this great story thing?
So it's literally across every podcast platform, I think. And we also have a website, greatstoriespod.com, all lowercase, obviously, greatstoriespod.com. That has the full library of 54 episodes at this stage. And a button there where you can click and donate if you fancy that, or you can
Patreon and all that type of thing.
Patreon's probably going to happen this summer. So that's basically where we're going with that. And like you said, the idea is try to get maybe myself onto a few shows that have ridiculously large listenerships. And I'm in a few chats.
Do you know what would be good for you as well? I'll give you a little bit of a tidbit.
Go on, give me a.
What would be nice for you to interview authors that have written some of these books? I know a lot of them might be old books going back hundreds of years or 50 years, but even modern, say 90s, 80s, 90s type, would you not be interested in that?
Here's the problem. With an awful lot of the guys who are more modern, you have copyright issues with using the stuff. And therefore you can't ring up and say, hey, listen, I want to talk to you about your story. And they come back to you and say, I don't
like your book.
you're not allowed to use my story or whatever it happens to be. So so I do kind of go back the way I had a few awkward little bits and bobs with that. Interactions with authors, trying to get permission to use the thing. So that's proven a little bit awkward. And anyway, to be perfectly honest with you, people talking about their own stuff sometimes isn't the best. Whereas I had a mate of mine, Neil Poole, who's a Scouser, who I got to know through Liverpool and the mutual support of the club. And he did a fanzine, I used to write for it. And Neil came on because Neil's other second great love is books. And the two of us just sounded like two lads down the pub having a chat, but it was pretty high level conversation over and back. So I prefer that where we're actually analysing it, you know, that kind of way, and having a bit of a chat about it. And people seem to like that format. No,
it's brilliant. And I mean, like, as you say, it's worldwide charm as well. You know what I mean? I mean, we're obviously of a generation where a lot of people used to read books. Now they even the Kindle's gone. I mean, most people are looking into their bloody phone, looking into their palm of their hand at this stage. And I don't think, now I know there's probably a revival in books, but the books in the 80s and 90s, I mean, people used to go to bed reading books, didn't they? I know a lot of people go away on holidays and stuff. I wasn't a huge reader. My wife used to sit beside the pool reading about 50 books, on a week's holiday in Spain or whatever. But, I mean, little girl used to read a lot of books, but I think it's very important. As you say, it's important for loads of different reasons, language and all this type of thing. What would be, we'll finish it soon, but what would be, okay, who's your favorite author? Obviously, an author with a load of books. Who would be your one you go, wow?
Every time I come back to the same thing, I tend to go Irish. So I did a lot of my time in college writing about and reading and analysing James Joyce. So people hear about Ulysses and they think, oh, that's too difficult.
It's apparently very hard. My wife read it now. I think she was in college at the time. She said it's, wow.
Well, it has that reputation, right? But it does reward you when you go back. And the other one for me that I can't get my head around how good he is Dostoevsky. I've been reading and reading his stuff again and again. The next one on the Great Stories is going to be one of his short stories called The Dream of a Ridiculous Man. So anyone gets a chance to read Mr. Dostoevsky.
So what are you doing? Are you dissecting the story? Are you giving your own view? What are you doing?
So I read it, I narrate the story so people have that experience of hearing it. Because like you said, man, they might never read the book.
Yeah.
And I know my eyesight's gone to shit. I get migraines and stuff like that. So I've had to cut back on my reading. So Audible is my friend now. I'm downloading books all the time and listening to them. So people like that experience of someone telling them a story. Dave, it's the oldest thing in the world. You go down to the pub at the weekend. It's an
Irish thing. It's a very Irish thing.
Yeah, it's all yarns, just yarns.
That's all I have here, waffling.
Yeah, there you go. So that's what the podcast is. Really top end yarns. I narrate them. We have a little bit of a chat about them, so people might like it.
Wow, yeah, I'll have to check it out as well. I mean, my wife likes books and stuff. She'd probably be interested in it. But also, you do a bit of little stuff, as I said. We won't mention it too much, but Anfield Index, and I know Jan, we all know he's a legend. We mentioned it as well, but what is Jan like? I mean, he comes across as sort of serious, is he? Is he funny? He's a great player. Man. What a player as well. What a player, I have to say.
No, he's actually tremendous crack. And if you ever give one of the shows to listen, you'll hear that. Now, here's the thing about Jan is, and it might seem as if I'm being biased, but I don't have to say this. For me, it's just a gig, right? So I'm just doing the show. I could just be doing the show, but I don't. I love it. And the reason I love it is he's actually the best in the business, man. All those guys, all those stuffed shirts on Sky Sports getting paid a fortune. Man, this guy brings the receipts. He knows his job. Like, he knows the players. He's not doing like Eamon Dunphy spoofing about like just guessing what a lad's like or whatever, or saying something about a club based on what they were like in the 80s. He knows because he works with Danish TV. So he does all the Champions League games, all the Premier League games. Right. And he does the commentary, right? So he knows everything. So that's part one. He's the best at it. I honest to God, it's an honor to work with him. And the second part is he's actually tremendous crack. We just have a laugh every week. And if you want stories, man,
he's your man. Molby's the man. He's your man. Jan Molby, the Great Dane, as they used to call him.
The Great Dane.
The Great Dane. Well, listen, I'll tell you what, we leave it there because it's been an absolutely brilliant chat. It's like sitting at the bar, having a beer or a Coke or water or milk or whatever you're having yourself and chatting. And that's the way I like it. That's the format I like. I know a lot of people do podcasts and they send you big, huge lists of what to say. It's just, it's a Dick Cavett start, you know. There's like a story. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. That's basically it, baby. Isn't that it? That's it.
It's a beautiful thing, Dave. It's a beautiful thing, man.
Well, Trev Downey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute legend. As I said, check out the Great Stories, guys. We'll put the link down in the description. And, of course, Anfield Index, Trev and Jan chatting about the club we all love, LFC. Stay safe. Talk soon. You'll never walk alone. Trev Downey. Cheers.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you very much.